Hi, I'm Alex Topazzo, Vice President and Insurance Agent here at Topazzo Insurance. You've got questions about general liability insurance. We've got answers. Let's get into it. Before we get in too deep, I want to let you know that this is going to be a longer video. The topic is very broad and I'm going to try my best to give a good overview. If you'd like to skip to any particular segments, you can see the screen times up on the screen and you can skip to that question. So most clients who call, text, chat, or email start the conversation by saying, "I need insurance." We hear that a lot. It doesn't really tell us what type of insurance you're looking for, but most clients mean they're looking for general liability coverage. General liability is the foundation of any business insurance program. It can sometimes be the only insurance a small business purchases. General liability provides coverage for bodily injury or property damage that's a result of the work that you do or the product that you sell. That's a very broad description, and general liability covers a lot of things, but it doesn't come close to covering everything. Let's get into some of the things it doesn't cover. So as you would expect, policies have limitations and outright exclusions. That means that you have to bundle other types of insurance policies to find coverage. One thing that general liability doesn't cover is property damage that belongs to you or that is in your or your business's care, custody, or control. Property damage to your business property or sometimes cases to your customer's property can be covered by property insurance. It also doesn't cover bodily injury to anyone related to your business, for example, employees, volunteers, owners, partners, etc. You can find coverage for these types of claims with workers' compensation or accident health coverage. General liability does not cover your professional exposure. This means if you're a lawyer, doctor, architect, realtor, insurance agent, or many other licensed or accredited professions, you would also need to purchase professional liability insurance, also known as malpractice or errors and omissions insurance. You still need general liability to provide coverage for non-professional claims, such as a slip and fall in your office or a fire caused by your presence on a project site, but your work more likely will be covered by a professional liability policy. There are a few more standard exclusions on a general liability policy which are a bit more self-explanatory, like expected or intended injury or damage, contractual liability, liquor liability, employer's liability, pollution, aircraft, autos, and watercraft. Many general liability policies also have endorsements to the policy that can further restrict or exclude some of these situations. Now that's enough about what's not covered. Let's discuss what is covered with a few examples. Probably the most common example is a premises that you occupy. Let's say you have a customer come into your office for a meeting. While in your office, they trip over a chair and then an employee had accidentally left out. The customer may need medical attention due to the fall. That medical attention will likely be covered by your general liability policy because it was your employee's negligence. Another example, let's say you're a clothing manufacturer and one of the machines that you should have maintained last month overheats, causing a fire and spreads to your neighbor's warehouse, destroying their stock, machinery, materials, and office equipment. The damage to your neighbor's property will likely be covered due to your negligence. Remember that your property will not be covered by the general liability policy. One more example I can give is, let's say you're an ironing board manufacturer who sells your products to a large chain store, who in turn retails the product to consumers. Due to a slight manufacturing flaw, the latch that holds the board upright is weak and results in several consumers burning themselves when they irons because the boards keep falling down unexpectedly. The medical injuries of those consumers will likely be covered due to your negligence. Those are a few examples of the financial losses that can be transferred to an insurance company with a general liability policy. The standard general liability policy is made up of several parts. General aggregate is the maximum amount of coverage the policy will pay in any policy period. Once the general aggregate has been completely depleted, the policy will no longer provide any coverage. The products and completed operations aggregate is the maximum amount of coverage that the policy will pay from a loss resulting from a product or service that you have sold after the product or service has been delivered or completed In example number 3 above, you can see the situation where the products and completed operations aggregate would have been used. Personal and advertising injury is one of the more misunderstood parts of the policy. The section provides coverage for losses resulting in things like libel, slander, and/or false arrest. The each occurrence limit is the maximum payable due to any one occurrence on the policy. This may be smaller than the general aggregate, so you may have multiple losses that combine to reach the general aggregate. But no single loss may go over the each occurrence limit. It's possible to raise the each occurrence limit to the general and the general aggregate with the purchase of an umbrella insurance policy or an excess liability policy. Damage to rented premises or fire damage limit is also a very misunderstood part of the general liability policy. It's also one of the easiest to explain because it only covers one very specific situation. If you rent a space, that space that you rent is in your care, custody, or control, which is not covered by the general liability policy as I explained earlier. This part gives back some coverage for a loss of fire, only fire, that is due to your negligence. Medical payments is a sublimit, usually $5,000 or $10,000 of the general aggregate that will provide coverage for medical bills that results from your product, services, or operation without the heavy burden of negligence having to be proven. Keep in mind, this would solely be for medical bills, so any claims for additional compensations such as loss of earnings or property damage would not be included in the medical payments sublimit. Types of general liability policies. There are basically 2 types of policies. The first, an occurrence policy, is a type of policy that would respond to claims based on when the accident occurs. As the example in the slip and fall, the occurrence is easy because the accident occurred instantly. With a product claim, like in the ironing boards, it can be a little more difficult. For instance, let's say that you were selling those ironing boards that had a big chain store 5 years ago, but not anymore. When you were selling to the store, you had higher limits of coverage, $2 million, because they required you to. Now, 5 years later, is when the weak latch causes the bodily injury. Your current policy only provides coverage for $300,000 because you chose to carry lower limits because the store didn't require it anymore. Even though you had $2 million of coverage when you sold the product, you only had $300,000 when the occurrence occurred. So since your current lower limit policy that would provide the coverage, and you may find yourself at odds with the big chain store if the loss is higher than your lower limit due to the contract you signed. The other type of policy is the claims made, which is a much rarer type of general liability policy that would respond to claims based on when the claim is made and not when the occurrence happened. So imagine that the occurrence occurred last year, but the claim was made this year. Your current policy is the one that would pay the claim. We strongly discourage our customers from purchasing claims-made policies because once the policy is started, it is imperative that there be continuous coverage without lapse in order for the policy to respond. Claims-made policies have 2 dates that are very important in order for the coverage to apply. The first is the retroactive date, which is the date in which the policy will start to provide coverage for occurrences. This means any occurrences that results from a loss prior to the retroactive date would not be covered regardless of the date the claim was made. The other date is the extended reporting period date. Claims-made policies have a definite number of days after the policy has lapsed to report a claim. If the claim is reported after that date, there would be no coverage even if the occurrence happened during the policy period. The cost of general liability insurance is calculated using one of 5 kinds of information called premium basis. Area makes sense. It's usually what's used for businesses whose operations are confined to a space that they work in. As an example, a landlord of a commercial building or land, office for professional service like a doctor, lawyer, or architect. Other types of businesses can also be rated on square feet when the policy is limited to provide coverage solely to satisfy the landlord's requirements and the products and completed operations coverage is excluded. This is often called premises liability. Gross sales is the way that most commonly policies are based on, and it's used for businesses whose operations generally based around the sale of a product. Some examples include retail stores, manufacturers, importers or distributors, restaurants, etc. Units. This premium basis is most often used for residential businesses or nonprofits like apartment buildings, condominium associations, or homeowners associations. Payroll, the second most used premium basis after gross sales. Payroll is used for services or construction industries where the amount of work performed by an employee is the biggest risk of claims. Businesses like landscapers, carpenters, tree trimmers, boat repair or maintenance, information technology consultants, programmers, janitorial, on and on and on. When none of the previous fit, other is basically the one that's used. It's more individualized by the type of business. So examples would include child care or adult care centers, which are rated based on the number of children or adults that they take care of. Beauty salons, nail salons, massage, or other beauty-related services are often based on the number of technicians performing the different services. Private schools, tutoring, or instructional programs are rated by the number of students. For gross sales, payroll, or area, the premium cost is generated by multiplying the carrier's rate times the thousands of the premium basis. For example, $20,000 of payroll for a carpenter whose rate would be $30 could be 20 times 30 equals $600. For units or other, the premium cost is generated by multiplying the carrier's rate by the premium basis. For example, a daycare center with 100 kids whose rate was about $15 would be 100 times 15 equals $1,500. Keep in mind that not all insurance is created equal. This was a very broad and general explanation of the different parts and types of general liability policies. But some policies have endorsements that either take away or even add more coverage. No matter what you may see on TV or in the internet ads, all policies are not the same. You should spend some time with your independent insurance agent to discuss your coverage and make sure that the insurance coverage you want to have is what would be covered on your general liability policy. If you don't have an independent agent or would like a second opinion, feel free to call, chat, or email us, and we would be glad to discuss your needs or policy with you. Thank you. That's it. I think it's recording. Yeah, it is. Get that. Stop. Stop to it. Let's go back. And we'll start again. Man, it's amazing. Man, it's amazing. Man, it's amazing that it is still too fast. I almost did that. Pause. Just this part of the press pause. We have to start over. I said 10 instead of 15. Isn't it funny that when I get stuck, I just get stuck?